see me thinking deeply? Did you notice that?
Yes.
I was trying to figure something out, and I can't figure it out. David Goss and Jordan Angeli together. I am currently studying Spanish for like the first time. Actually,
Duolingo, or like you have a teacher?
Yes. No, Duolingo. Does that not count?
No, it counts.
Okay,
I wanted to know how you were studying.
Yeah, it's Duolingo / living in Miami.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
So, like,
yeah. Everywhere
being
you go.
bullied into it.
If you go to the
in your
Miami
everyday-
airport, you better speak Spanish.
100%. 100%. One of my stories is that I've traveled like a decent amount in my life, and probably the most culture shock I've ever felt, aka like I kind of feel uncomfortable and I want to go home, was in Brazil. I actually found it like the hardest place to function in. People like wouldn't meet you halfway. They were like, "Oh, you don't speak Portuguese? Okay, so you can go screw yourself and like figure it out." And I'd be like, "Oh, what floor is my room on?" And I'd like use my hands, and they'd just say it back to you in Portuguese, and you'd be like, "Okay, cool." So
Yeah. Great. Great.
thank you for meeting me halfway. And I flew back to the U.S. after being there for like 3 weeks for the World Cup in 2014, and was like, I kind of am excited for the first time to like be back in the U.S. and have people speak English. And I transferred in Miami. And you have to go through full security and customs. And I get to the security line, and the guy looks at me, just starts speaking Spanish. And it was like arguably the most defeated I've ever been. Like my shoulders. Yeah. I was like, now I would do 2% better. But I was going to say you're going full glasses today, which you've
Yes.
never done on the show. And I was going to call you the professor, which in Spanish I believe is el profe, and I didn't know how to make it feminine. Then I didn't know if I was supposed to, and I was trying to figure it out, and I never got there.
Okay. Great. Awesome. Well, thank you for that compliment.
So
I could show off a little Spanish too if you want me to. Feliz cumpleaños a ti. Feliz cumpleaños a ti.
Very well handled.
Yeah. Happy birthday yesterday,
Thank you.
Goss. Yep. Our birthdays are very close together.
They are.
A few years apart, very close.
I have met a lot of June people.
Yeah.
I think it's like a really good time.
Well, I'm May,
period.
so like, don't put me in the June.
Oh, fair.
Yeah.
But are we
I'm
the same?
very
I don't
close.
know the things. Are we the same?
I don't know. I don't know the things
Yeah,
either.
I don't know the things.
So
Everyone
that
always
was
tells
good.
me. My
That's gonna
wife
be
is
a good clip. I don't know
Yeah,
the things.
exactly. My wife is 6 days apart from me, and which is great because we do like one birthday thing.
Yeah, that's nice.
And both of us are like not huge about it, so it works out. And everyone's always like, "Oh, perfect. So you're both," and you know those go well together because they're. And you're like, "Okay, I guess so." And I
Cool.
forget 100% of the time what we are. Are we Cancer?
I'm a
we
Gemini.
Gemini, or is that the twins? Mm-hmm. So are we the twins?
Are we the twins?
Are we the twins? Is the big question everyone is asking. Well, we are very excited to be back on. Our schedule got thrown off yesterday. I was being a birthday brat and all over the map. But we're back now today.
Literally.
This is also a very big day for soccer-wise. It is technically our 1-year anniversary. You've got the shirt on. I didn't have my shirt on. I don't know
Yeah,
why
what the
I'm not
heck?
wearing it.
I thought we all
Yeah.
were going to wear our shirts.
I will go get mine and I will do that. But it has been a really, really special year. So we're going to do a little record with Tom that we're going to put out on socials in a moment that, a chance for all. I think it'll be the first time we're all on together since a year ago.
I think
when
it
I had
is,
us
yeah.
do an opening promo.
Yeah.
But I've enjoyed this a ton. I enjoy talking about this league. I enjoy covering it, and I enjoy working with you. So
I know, it's so fun.
We get to
Thanks
do it
for,
once again.
Thanks for dragging me along and being a part of this.
Yeah, it is. We're living the dream day by day. And we've got a good weekend to come off of. It was international break, and then NWSL was like, oh, you felt like you didn't get enough chaos. So we're going to like double the dosage this week
Wow.
to bring it all. So what I calculated was 4 games with an 80th minute goal that decided the result or later.
Yep.
And by later, I don't mean the 82nd minute. I mean the 99th minute in Orlando. That doesn't include the 100th minute own goal that was scored by Vanessa DiBernardo, which made that game 2-1 Kansas City in favor. And we will talk about Vanessa in a little bit, who had a really special week. That doesn't include red cards. It doesn't include multiple goals from outside the box where you could debate which one is the best.
I know.
think I know your answer, but like,
Oh, gosh.
all of them were ridiculous. And that does not include VARs or potential VARs, which had people sort of riled up as the weekend went along.
Not NWSL fans. Not riled up.
No, never.
Never.
Not assistant coaches either.
Not assistant coaches either.
It's like, sometimes I can't tell if it's more embarrassing if you're an assistant coach who gets a yellow card. Like, it feels embarrassing when the head coach is like, calm down.
Yeah.
Because it's like kind of the head coach's job to be the one yelling from the sideline. And then the assistants get up and they're yelling. And I can't tell if you're like actually taking one for the team by the,
Yeah.
or if it's like the head coach is like, really? You're making like now I'm coaching you too? I can't tell which way it goes.
I'll take one for the team.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll take that side. You can take the
Yeah.
sit down, child.
Well, when I watch basketball, there are a lot of times where I'm like, coach needs to get teed up now. Like, yell at the ref, reset the tone a little, help your team. So I get it. It feels like a lot of times, though, when the ref makes the long run over, comes into the bench area, points at one of the coaches, shows the card, and everyone's like, I really wish they hadn't done that. But I will accept the take one for a team personality on that one. We have some transfer stuff going on as well. So the NWSL window is going to open on July 1st. Which we are not that far away from. It is an adjusted window, which has been announced. So you get 110 days of time that you can have the window open across the 2 transfer windows. One can be primary, one can be secondary. There are no rules, actually. It's just the decision of the local soccer federation, well, for us, USSF. And so the decision has been made here to make it split. So I think it's basically the same both, which now helps the second window line up with the European windows as all of those leagues have come to a close. We've already seen some big name signings. We talked for like 7 seconds about Angel City signing a Wolfsburg veteran at center forward, which is a huge deal, but you had to wait a little bit for that one. Gotham has already made a signing, and Liga MX has now entered the chat, trying to start to bring some talent back from NWSL and potentially talent moving in the other way. So we will talk about all of that as we go along. But we wanted to start with sort of the biggest results from the weekend. And to do so, you got to talk about the Gigantes, the giants of NWSL.
There's the
and when you are talking about it, you are talking about Louisville. You are talking about a team that has lived in 9th place. And right now, Jordan, they are on an incredible run. It was a 3-2 win. One of our many 80th plus minute winners in this game. So they got the goal, I believe it was in the 85th minute from Sarah Weber, who's playing in place of Kayla Fisher at center forward because of the suspension for Fisher. This game was delayed by an hour because of rain. And it ends up having 4 goals in the first 33 minutes of like, oh, you left early or you weren't sure if you were going to watch? No. You got to turn this one back on.
Yeah. It was the first game of the weekend, too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Friday night.
Yeah, so it was like, everybody buckle up because this is going to be a wild one. And I think it tends to be a little bit more wild when we come back from international breaks just because there's a lot of changes to lineups and teams and availability. But, this Louisville team are racing right now. They're like, all right, we have an identity. I think they've really honed in on saying we are going to be... What'd you say?
Well played on the racing.
Thank you. That was delayed, but I appreciate it. Earlier than we normally record, so excuse our minds from clicking. This racing team is bought into the identity that Bev Yanez, I think, has smartly put them into. If you look on paper, this racing team does not stack up with the best teams in NWSL. They don't have the star players. They don't have those players, like, from top to bottom, right? They, depth-wise, don't have what other teams have. Not saying they don't have good players and quality players who can be difference makers. But I think that you have to be good. You have to have an X factor if that's who you're going to be as a team. And their X factor is who they are without the ball. They are tough. And I think that word may be an understatement. When you play Louisville, you better be ready for a dogfight when you have the ball because they are going to hunt you down and win the ball back. And I feel like they've done a really good job of buying into that identity. And then as we've seen them progress through these, 5 games where they've won 4 out of the last 5, they actually have really good moments when they win the ball back and can play in transition or against Angel City. They built up one time and scored a goal through a nice build-up. Like, I'm just thinking back to other games. So I'm really excited because I feel like we've seen pieces of this Louisville team over the even last year. I thought they might squeak into the playoffs.
Yeah.
But they just haven't had something different. And I feel like they've found it, and it's been fun to watch them. They're sitting in 6th, Goss. They're like feeling good.
They're sitting in 6th. They're tied in 6th with, or tied for 5th, technically, with Seattle. This is, for them, it's like we're talking every record now because it hasn't been a ton of time in NWSL and it hasn't been a ton of success. They are the 9th place team. This is the fastest they've ever gotten to 5 wins in a season. This is the best 5-game span they've ever had. Emma Sears in this game tied the single season goal scoring record at 6. And we are in week 12 this season. So she's going to break that record. And there's just a ton that they are doing that they have never done before. That alone is really exciting. Like for, I think, a franchise that I think, or at least a fan base that has deserved this, it's really exciting to see. You talked about a lot of like what's made them better, what's made them good. To play with intent and on the front foot is just so refreshing to see. And last year, that segment of time, they dominated games through their central midfield play and control of the game.
Yeah.
But even then, it was often very much played in the middle third. And they have very often, over their time in NWSL, been a team that allows the other team to dictate the game.
Yeah.
And so now, the way they are pressing in games, but constantly playing on the front foot, is they are the ones who are choosing the way games are played out. I don't think it's a coincidence they've had multiple late winners of like, okay, you got to be perfect against us mentally. You have to play out cleanly. You have to switch on in transition against us. And it gets exhausting as the game goes along. Obviously, this game assisted by a red card as well. Tejada picking up 2 yellow cards, I think. The second one, like the 73rd minute. So now you've got an opponent on the road after delay playing 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is, down a player. But that still doesn't change the fact that they're super dangerous going forward. And I think a lot of it has unlocked Savannah DeMillo, which is, she is one of the best 1v1 attackers in central areas. But if you play against set defenses, there isn't really a ton of positive opportunity to take players on 1v1.
Yeah.
And you're seeing now, the moment they win the ball back, she has space to start moving at pace. She can beat defenders close to her, and then that opens up the whole game for everyone else.
I feel like her and Croy remind me a lot of each other because, and last year when Croy was on her heater before she got injured, it was a good defensive block from Washington, and it was oftentimes quick transition moments from defensive posture to that attacking phase of play, and Croy was in space on the dribble creating, and that's when DeMello also is at her best. And it's fun to see because she's gone through a lot of health things. She went from like being on top of the world going to the World Cup, and then the downfall of that and what happened there, the difficulty of handling that mentally as a young player or as a player in general, despite if you're young. And I feel like she's finally getting to be herself again, which helps this Louisville team. And, I think Taylor Flint will continue to be one of the underrated midfielders in this league. Like, there are plays that she breaks apart that I'm like, how the heck did she get there? It is incredible to watch. It looks effortless at times, and she is a key cog into what's going right in Louisville. But I think Jordan Bloomer has to get credit too. She's been great coming in, getting her chance, and she has a real vibe about her, like an aura back there, right? She's a little, to me, seems louder than Katie Lund, a little bit more, has some swag to her that I really like. And she's done a good job stepping in and making big saves when called upon. But the biggest thing for me, Goss, if this Louisville team is real, is they have to win the games against teams ahead of them. Or get results. I wouldn't say you have to win. You have to get results. And they have not. They lost to San Diego. They lost to Washington. These are games that if they are going to say, we are making the playoffs, you got to get a draw.
Yeah.
You hope for a win, but you got to get a draw against those teams ahead of you. And that, to me, is going to be the differentiation factor for this Louisville squad if they are going to be that next level.
We're going to see it. Clash of the Titans. 2 best teams over the last 5 games have been Kansas City and Louisville. They face off this weekend. Not sure everyone would have anticipated that would have been the must-circle game, and I think that's really fun and really, really cool. I think everything you're saying they're like this team. What they have done over the last few years is when you're out on them, they steal some results against the teams you kind of expect them to steal results again.
Yeah.
When you finish ninth, that means there are 5 teams worse than you, and there are points to get there. And if you could steal enough off the teams in front of you, you stay around. But the way you insert yourself higher up the standings is, like you said, by taking some of those results. I think there's a thank you from Louisville owed to us, because when Katie Lund got injured, we did a long show about how much we were worried about Louisville, and that basically sparked this run.
Yep.
So you are welcome.
They've just been listening to it on repeat.
For all of the effort we put in to help you get to this point. And
What's the media for if we don't give them things to...
Yeah. And we're
Are
here
we
for
media?
them.
I don't know.
I guess so, because what else would we be?
Cool.
Just hobbyists. Yeah. We're professors, so
We're professors.
We're just out here for educational purposes. Flint is awesome. You don't often see players at her size at that position that cover ground and also are so clean in tight spaces, both in possession and out of possession. She wins a ton of 50-50 tackles in which, players are trying to take her on and use their speed and their first step to get around her. You saw on the goal for Emma Sears, she plays on the left. It opens up the whole field for her. She is very right foot dominant. She has played on the right with the U.S. and with Louisville. Louisville last year, okay, you have Balser in the box. You've got people crashing from the far post. You want her to get to the end line and get crosses in. Fine. But now this year you have now opened up 70% of the field for her as an option more often. And I think you have a balance with this team where Malay is better at overlapping instead of underlapping. And so you kind of had her and Sears going into the same areas a lot. And now you've opened up a ton more of the game there. And you mentioned their depth at the beginning. A lot of that is on unexpected pieces. Non-roster invites in O'Kane being in midfield.
Yeah.
Fisher to start because Balser unavailable. And now Weber gets you the winner. And I thought Weber was really dangerous in just occupying center backs and constantly making runs, especially reading the space when the ball did get wide, of like when to make the first run, when to re-rotate, when to make the second run. And I thought it made this team look really, really dangerous. Utah had spells, but they were all like middle third spells. They were not, we're under pressure. And the second goal comes from sort of a moment of madness with a long ball over the top in which Louisville has stepped forward and had been dominating long stretches of the game. So everything about what they're doing, as I said, unprecedented. Ellie Jean, first career NWSL
Keep
goal
talking. I need to get my power cord. This is a real morning moment.
Yeah,
my computer's about to die, so let's not let that happen.
Run for it. Ellie Jean, first career NWSL goal on the corner kick header that she had. That was the second goal for this team. Sears had the opener on that curling shot, and then they end up winning it on Weber's header late on 85th minute, like back of the six, heads it all the way back across. And so this is pretty much Louisville's best season so far. The hope is that they're able to continue it and it doesn't just become a flash in the pan. We'll talk about the matchup against Kansas City coming up in a little bit. Kansas City also had an eventful game, but Friday night we had Seattle with a late winner over our darlings in the league in San Diego. Cascarino gets the goal. They're up 1-0. You're thinking it's rolling. Here's a wild one. So it was the first time in 7 games that San Diego didn't score in the first half. Like, that's how explosive they have been. They ended up scoring in the 75th to take to tie it 1-1, and then take a 1-0 lead. No, tie it 1-1.
I think tie it. I think it was
and then
Seattle,
the winner
San Diego, Seattle.
And then the winner came a few minutes later. I think for Seattle, listen, it's not overly fun to watch, but it has been effective enough to keep them in the conversation. Last year, the summer window was a big one for them, like because of the ownership change and everything. I don't expect that again, so I just don't know what the next step is for this team in the second half of this year.
It's a little confusing to me just because Laura Harvey is not pragmatic like this, right? Yeah. She is not a coach that we would expect to see playing. I should rephrase that. She doesn't want to have teams score goals against her.
Yeah.
And last year, I think they gave up 44 goals. Like, she was like, that is not us. And had to switch things in preseason, and then during the season, when you are out, a Jess Fishlock centrally.
Yeah.
And you don't have that player to connect your back line with your front line and all the work that Fishlock does to help players around her. You have to adapt. And I think part of the adaptation as well is like, how do we get Lou Barnes on the field?
Yeah.
And I think there's a way you can play in a 4-back and just build out of a 3 where you get Lou Barnes on the field and you're a little bit more aggressive with your other outside back in Curry, which they want to be kind of similar to what they're doing. But to me right now, it's like, it's hard. It's not easy to watch.
Yeah.
Because it's a really defensive posture. They try to go in transition. And this game, when they did, they were very successful through Fishlock, through Lynn Biondolo, and through a couple of younger players with bombs from outside the box. But the XG on those 2 shots, what do you think it is? Probably like 0.07.
Definitely in the 0.0 territory. Yes,
it is. You're not going to score those all the time. And that's the frustrating thing with the players that they have in a Darlene, a Biondolo, Haidema, even though I don't think Haidema is a goal scorer per se. But Crnogorcevic, Curry creating on the right side, the runners that they have from the midfield to get in. I think they have more goals in them, and I think that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
But you got to figure out if this is the way that you're going to play. You have to win these types of games. Like I just said about Louisville, right? You have to get results against teams that are above you. And the thing that we've seen from San Diego is they're good when there's space. I mean, they're good when there's not a lot of space, and they have shown that they can break teams down in low blocks. But that is the hardest thing to do. And if you're doing that game after game after game, you're probably going to be getting less and less and less goals, right? You're not going to always be able to break that down as well as you do in transition. So I think it was a good game plan from Laura Harvey. Her 250th coached game in NWSL, which is far surpasses anybody else in this league. I'm happy she got a win on the road against a really good San Diego team.
I will say on the goal, Adamas's goal to win it, it shows the threat she is, that Armstrong's kind of on skates really far from goal. Like she's reacting in a way in which it's like when you're inside the box and you don't want to let a shot out. Mm-hmm. So you're like overplaying in both sides, and then a player's able to get an opening. And I think it shows the threat that she's become, and Seattle taking advantage of a transition moment. Yeah. And, San Diego dominating throughout the game. But now all of a sudden, we're on skates. We're backtracking. I don't know exactly where the runners are and where my teammates are. And Seattle was able to take advantage.
How good was that touch from Jess Fishlock off her chest?
Yeah. The 12-yard. I called it in my notes. I called it a layoff, and then put an asterisk on it and didn't know what to do with it, because it's like a 12-yard layoff, 55 yards from goal, but it's the exact play you need to
chest,
make.
Like falling away.
Yeah, and but then it opened up the space because Adamas could be running at pace, and you saw the 2 center backs slightly shift as that ball came in, thinking that it was going to go into the right channel, and Seattle took advantage. For San Diego, I don't know that it's like anything worrying. But there is questions of just like they've outperformed.
Yes.
Like where does it fall in the middle? Part of my question of where it falls in the middle becomes depth of they don't have a ton of pieces to go into. And so whether it's internationals, whether it's injuries, whether it's just the length of the season, how much can they maintain these performances? And you saw like Gia Corley doesn't start, comes in, is electric. And there's a little bit of rotation across the attack, but not a ton. Yeah. And I think a lot of that's going to be questioned as the season goes along. And part of that, which we're going to get into a little bit later, is Maria Sanchez might be leaving NWSL in a moment. But before we get there, let's talk about the other big games of the weekend. And one of them is the Kansas City-Gotham game. Kansas City-Gotham, 2 of the top 4 teams last year. Big matchup coming to Gotham at home. Every time I think we've said like, oh, Kansas City, we'll see what they are. Like we're going to learn a lot about them. We've learned that they're pretty good and they can win games in a lot of different ways. This looked more like it did on the road at Washington earlier in this season, a little bit more against the ball, smash and grab than maybe it is at home. But they continue. I think one of the promising things about them is all of these quote unquote big games. One of your worries is like, okay, they're the favorites. So everyone else gets up to play them. And I think that's what we're seeing with Orlando this year. Is like the mentality for other teams, like this is a playoff game. And for you, that's every game. Kansas City comes out flying in these games. They did it once again in this one. They score the early goals. You know you have to try and shut down Chewinga. No one can do it. But this was another example to me of how much Bia opens up the game for her. And you look at all these goals and chances that Chewinga has, and it's Chewinga going from the left side to the right channel, but not being tracked because Bia's dropping in or Bia's floating wide. And everyone, as they're passing Bia off, loses the best player in the league for a half second, and that's all she needs.
Because you have to respect Bia. I remember when we did our preseason like awards, what people are going to meet to win. I said Bia was going to be the Golden Boot, right? Because of the opposite thing, right?
That?
Like, I thought I did.
I know you had a lot of KC stock, and I know we kind of fell all over the map.
Yeah,
I didn't realize you said
Chewinga.
Bia Golden Boot.
Yeah, I did. Because I thought
that
because with Cooper and with Chewinga on the channels, I was like, they're going to feed her the ball. And it's actually been the opposite, where she has been able to create space, especially for Chewinga, most likely for Cooper too, as she gets healthy and back into the mix. But she is so fun to watch. She might be my favorite player in the league to watch because of what she can do in the manipulation of space and players. And her hold-up play is excellent. She is faster than you think she is. She is a handful when the ball is at her feet. She is really fun to watch, and you're exactly right. Because of that, you have to respect it, and it creates space for the best player in the league, like the reigning best player in the league, right? Who continues to score goals. And this is the thing about Kansas City. If you let them score early, it's pretty much over.
Yeah.
Because they are not going to give up goals.
No, they get the goal in the 3rd minute from Michelle Cooper, 11th minute from Chewinga, and Gotham. I don't want to say it this way because Kansas City's really good, but they kind of didn't show up until after halftime. So you're behind the game before you've really woken up and you really find your feet. It's obviously all really promising, especially with Cooper. You've had the injuries to DiBernardo, like there's sort of a little bit of worry all of a sudden, and you realize one of the reasons we were so high on this team is the depth and their ability to change out all these pieces and still be really dangerous. And they all do it in slightly different ways, but like it all fits together in all these different matchups. And this was another one for them. The second half then of this game became a bizarre set of circumstances. There was about 5 controversial calls. I think Gotham would say all 5 of them went against them. That doesn't mean any of them were wrong, but the frustration built up. The moments built up. You had 2 with Claire Hutton involved. So one was a foul called against Emily Sonnet for pushing Hutton on the goal line on a corner kick that Sonnet scored. That was like right out of halftime. So it would have been 2-1 in like the 49th minute. Now that changes the game. Then right after that, Esther cut back against Hutton with the ball bounced up and it hit Hutton in the arm. And then you get into, is it bigger than the body? Is it a natural position? Was there anything she could do about it?
Was it deflection off the player's body and then to her hand? I mean, you name the handball rule. Like, you tell me what it is, and I'll believe you at this point because it's so subjective.
And that's how this game felt the entire time. The biggest one being a deep cross from Jess that was knocked back. I don't remember which Kansas City player sort of cleared it. Off the line is a really bad term to use, but inside the 6 to Esther, who took an unbelievable first touch, scores it, has been in great form, looked awesome with Spain as well. Like, is playing, I think, the best she's played since the World Cup, both for club and country, now back with country. And everyone celebrates and, like, moves on. Like, just no chance. And it turns out that Esther was offside when the original cross was hit. VAR takes a look for about 4 minutes, but the referee never actually goes to the monitor. Then the referee jogs over and you're like, okay, here you go. It's to give a yellow card to the assistant coach, like we talked about at the Open. And then the goal gets chalked off and it stays 2-0. This was like around the 75th minute. And I think for Gotham, I can understand the like, okay, there's no way all of this goes against us. So there's that level of frustration with the potential that some of them could have gone your way. I think probably the Hutton handball is the one most, because while Sonnet doesn't create a ton of contact, your arms are extended from behind, like that's going to get called against you. And you had a bit of an explainer on the Esther goal, which made me more confused.
Yeah, well, I don't have the explainer. Christina Uncle
Fair.
went on the CBS show to explain it because this was on. It was a big CBS game, I believe. Yeah, it was, and they
Yes.
had a post game on Golazo, and Poppy Miller had asked her, tell us, like, please explain this to us because I don't get it. And your reaction was Kelly O'Hara sitting on the desk, like, okay, like, this is really the law. So I guess there's a nuance of the offside rule where if a player, if you deliberately play the ball when a player is offside as a defender, it is still, it then isn't offside.
Yeah.
If you deliberately play it.
You reset the play as a defender.
Yes.
And it's no longer the pass that sets their offside.
Yes.
And you can be offside and receive a ball from a defender.
Yes. But if that player is close to their goal line and making a quote unquote save, then it doesn't offset the offside and that player is still offside. Got it?
Have you ever heard this before?
No, I've never seen this before, but also I think there's controversy between deliberate and deflection. You know, like I think if a player's reaching to get a ball, they are deliberately playing the ball.
If you are consciously playing it, then
and it's not
deliberate
just
to me.
hitting off of you.
Yes.
That's a deflection.
Yeah.
But when we talked to Pro this year, Pro comes in our broadcast seminar every year to talk to us. And we had a lot of questions about deliberate and deflection because I'm like, she's trying to play that ball. She is deliberately playing that ball. And anyways, so there's controversy in that. Of course, this is the thing we actually love about the game, even though we hate it, is that there is controversy. So we can have these types of discussions and talk about it. But that is the reason Christina Uncle gave on Golazo, and you do with that what you will.
It is, like you said, it's one of the reasons we like it. And it's funny because when VAR came in, everyone's like, oh, well, you're actually going to kill the debate. And then VAR has become a debate. And people are like, well, why have it if there's a debate? And it's like, this is kind of what you wanted? Like, isn't this what everyone was complaining about? And the only thing about this save language is just, I've never read the rule book. And what I have read is actually more confusing than you think it's going to be because it's like very vague. There are not hard lines, which is why we like the game and all of that. Mm-hmm. I've never heard anything said about save. Like I've never heard that phrase in any way. So, and then you get into like, well, is it on goal? Is it a save? Like it felt like a clearance on a cross. What makes it a save? I thought it was going to go back to does Esther's positioning and the fact that she's around the game affect the defender. Now you move into passive offside, which clearly is not fully what that conversation was about. I don't know.
Right. But also, even if that is the case, she played the ball well.
Yeah.
You know, it just ended up that Esther was in that space that she headed the ball into. It's not like it was a poor play. So, yes, it affected her positioning potentially, but like not enough. Like, what else is she going to do with that?
I think what people say, now we're like 30 steps past this, is the fact that the defender plays it at all is because they know there's an attacker there. And therefore, that alone creates the passive offside. The need to make a play is affected by an attacker near you. That attacker is in an illegal position. So some people would say that. This also goes to the deliberate thing, which I've always thought deliberate means making any attempt to play the ball. But then referees will say, well, did they deliberately try and make that play? And I'm like, no, that doesn't matter. You can hit a bad pass.
You deliver it that way, and
you hit a bad pass all the time. Did you try to play soccer or did a ball hit you? Those are the two. To me, those are the two buckets. Clearly, that is not the way this works.
This is why we're not referees and we are media.
Oh my God, I would be terrible. I refereed, I worked at a sleepaway camp, and there was a soccer team and a soccer coach, which I was not involved in, and they were like, we have no ref today. Can you help? And I was so bad at it, I also kept running towards the ball. So I was always out of position because I was like, I don't really know what to do with my hand. I don't know where to be. It is a thankless job, so we appreciate the ones who do it. Yeah. Two big notes from this game. One, Rose Lavelle finally returned to the field, which is really good to see for Gotham, for everyone. Obviously, one of the best players in the world. We love to see her out there on the field and kind of very necessary for this Gotham team. Yeah. They have not been putting together the results they would like. It has not been the season that they would have expected. Some of that was kind of anticipated because they lost so many huge pieces. They currently sit in 10th place on 12 points on the season. This is now 4 straight games without a win for them, 3 losses and a draw. So that is a welcome return for them. And I do think probably the biggest piece in all of this, there's a lot of 1v1 creators and finishers in this team. There's not someone that really ties the whole thing together, and Lousiville has the potential to be that.
I wonder if that's the worst run that Gotham has had under Juan Carlos. It has to be.
Yeah, I would guess so. Although first year was not great going towards the playoffs. Like they barely snuck in.
Right.
But yeah, I would assume over 5 games, they've probably gotten more than 4 points.
Yeah.
It's tough to watch at times. I think this one was one of those like, oh, they'll get up for this, right? This is heart of a champion type stuff, and you didn't feel that for a lot of it. They've made a big acquisition in central midfield, bringing in a Danish international, which I think shows you where they think their weaknesses are, and I don't think that's wrong. And we've talked a bit about people's positioning. I think Howell's more of a 6 than an 8, and I think it kills some of their passing there. I think Szczepanski is more of an 8 than a 10, and so I think that kills some of their creativity. I think you've seen that from Juan Carlos Amoros, the way he's played Esther at times as a 10 to try and help spark the attack. There's a lot of question marks for them. The other big note from this game is that it was Vanessa DiBernardo's 200th career NWSL appearance. She scored the home goal in the 100th minute of this game, one. Which I didn't even know how to put in my own notes. Like, do you put 90 plus 10 or do you put 100th when you say it?
Technically, probably 90 plus 10, but we are going to say 100th because it sounds more dramatic.
It is way more dramatic and more fun. We love round numbers like 200. Vanessa DiBernardo, we've talked about on this show a bunch. One of those players who has always been at the top of her game in the league, had never got the international opportunity to sort of break through. But the way the league has grown, I think to play in a sold-out building every week in Kansas City and be a star for one of the best teams is now sort of like part of that reward. I feel that she's getting put on the stage she deserves finally. And we're seeing another crop of players like her and the Taylor Flints and Sam Stobbs of like, are they going to get call-ups or not? But whatever it is, DiBernardo is a huge linchpin for this Kansas City team now because of the quality she has and the experience that she's gathered.
Yeah, I had to just look that up because I thought DiBernardo got a cap with the national team back in the day, but she didn't.
But was not a part of the group.
Yeah. Okay. What's interesting to me about Vanessa DiBernardo, all those things that you said, every player that I talk to that has been around her say that she is the best player they've ever played with. Her understanding of the game might not translate to goals and assists all the time, but what she can add from a tactical standpoint, from solving a situation in front of her standpoint, she's just one of the best that there is. And I think that really says something when everybody speaks of her like that. Like, I want you on my team and I never want to play against you because you're so savvy and smart and have the highest soccer IQ that I know. So just a little side note of like these conversations that I've had. It's cool to see someone have such a long career in the league. And I just hope that she can keep playing for a few more years. And
doesn't seem to be a problem. And I think when we talk about this KC team, one of the things that I always go to is I think DiBernardo is the most versatile player. And that to me is why she's the linchpin of Cooper can come in for Debinha. Debinha can come in for Bia. You can rotate Hutton and Labonta. The fact that DiBernardo can play as a 10, play as a winger, play as an 8, and probably play as a 6 is the thing that unlocks all of it of, okay, so you can do whatever you want as Vlatko, because as long as you have her in, she could play the other role that person's not comfortable with.
Yeah, and because she knows the defensive responsibilities, but in attack, I feel like she just turns it into being a midfielder in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
She's just like, all right, these are the pockets that I know I can exploit a team in, and I know the threats around me, and so I'll just play as a pocket winger, or as a 9, I'll play as a false 9. You know, she's just really smart, and congrats on 200 appearances.
Yeah. It is awesome. And they are expecting a big game against Louisville this weekend. Before we get into the weekend, one last game from last weekend, Washington against North Carolina. This was a fun one to close out. You were on the call for it. Congrats to Mike Watts, right?
Yes.
Papa Watts.
Papa Watts, oh my gosh, his son, he showed me this video of him just like, and I think it was his mom saying like, say hi to daddy. And he's just like looking at the camera, and Mike just like the way he looked at the video just made me, I've known Mike for a long time, like 8 years, like we've been working together, and just to see him grow up, right? He's much younger than me, and to see him now become a dad, it was just a cool moment. So we're just so happy for him. Congrats, Mike.
But made it back for the call for this one, which was an interesting one. It was, I think, a game, and I think you spoke to this on the broadcast, where North Carolina came out and played their soccer and controlled things. Washington is getting healthier, which makes them harder to play against. Corey Bethune is looking like Corey Bethune, which changes the game for everyone on the field. North Carolina scores in like the 15th minute. It gets called back. Boom, Washington scores right after. North Carolina controls. Washington scores again. And it kind of just threw the equilibrium of this whole match off.
It was a wacky game. And this is, I think, the biggest point for North Carolina. In the last 2 games, they've actually played pretty well, but it's been a couple of silly mistakes that have put them in where they've had a 5-goal differential in 2 games, right? Like a 5-2 game and then a 3-1 game. It was bizarre to me because even on the first goal, like Courtney Brown shouldn't score that goal. There's 5 players versus 2 for Washington in that transition, and North Carolina doesn't mark up the player in the middle of the box. Like that is a mistake. That is a mistake. And it actually stems, I think even before that, they could have been up 1-0 with Sanchez missed a sitter right in front of the goal. And you wouldn't expect that with the form that she has been on. So North Carolina, to me, I love the way they play. They are one of my favorite teams to watch in this league. But if they don't start capitalizing on those big moments that they have, especially when they're dominating the game, and fix some of these silly mistakes that they're making, it's going to be a tough year.
I have 2 questions for you. First is, you mentioned Bia being maybe your favorite player to watch. How high is Manaka on that list?
Oh my gosh.
What a goal.
What a goal. Who does that?
Yeah.
And
it's like a 30-yard scoop in the air. It's crazy how high that ball goes.
I was doing this in the broadcast in the booth. I was like,
for anyone not watching, you should be, because you're missing the glasses. It's the "We Are Not Worthy."
Yeah, from Wayne's World. It was, which I'm sure Manaka knows very well.
A huge part of growing up in the 2000s in Japan was watching 90s SNL clips from the United States.
It was incredible. Her movement on that, the recognition of like the seam, the pass into her. I got some good goals this weekend, and that was one of them.
The other one is just, what do you said, you worded it as didn't mark in the box. The way I wrote it in my notes, because it's the first and third goal, is that North Carolina's entire back line drops to the end line basically on both the goals. And I
forgot
don't
about the corner. They don't mark gift either.
And I don't understand what was happening. The first time it's like, okay, it's a bit of a transition moment. You're sort of recovering, but you very rarely will see that happen, which is like, there's no point marking that far deep on the field because your goalkeeper is going to pick up the ball at that point, anything coming into the 6. And they did it twice. I thought that was very, very odd to see. And you could say, oh, it's a different formation, they're learning it, but that's not the case at this point. And I was a little surprised by that.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. It would have been a really good thing to say on the broadcast.
I think you did fine over the 90-plus minutes that you were talking about these teams. Sean Nejas not at the game, had a medical emergency, so we're hoping everything's okay with him. We're hoping for the best. As I said, Corey Bethune just looks like there's pop. Her ability to accelerate out of a slow, standstill, and then you see it in transition. But what makes her so good is she can do that against set defenses. And there are few players in the world who can create enough space because they're so quick, so fast, that they can do so against set defenses. Gift Monday looking really good. Ule Sarr was at the game with Trinity Rodman, which is really exciting to see. Yeah. And so it's all starting to come together, it feels like, for Washington. I will say this quote, which is, so Gift Monday has scored on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and Esme Morgan said we should have a Monday night game. so that Gift Monday can score on Monday Night Soccer. So
I love that.
Fingers crossed for that one. I don't know if the Spirit fans would, although they've shown up for everything. 17,000 again. They have sold out Rowdy over and over. Obviously, we talked about Jonathan Heraldez last week. I think it was pretty positive, and I don't know if this is me trying to read into much of like when there was injuries and water breaks, he had the board out, everyone came over, everyone was still engaged. Like it didn't feel like there was anything sort of weird happening, which is your best hope of like, can we get through this period and not sort of rock the boat too much and then go forward under Adrian?
Yeah, I think that's well said, and it might just be really weird for us, and maybe they're just thinking it's all right, whatever. Yeah. We just got to play soccer still.
I mean, now that we have full free agency, players are consistently going to be announced as free agent available while playing. Mm-hmm. And so they may have already signed contracts or they're leaving and they're going to have to play through that. So maybe, as you said, it's not as weird internally for it to happen with a coach. Let's go to the big games of the weekend. Kansas City versus Louisville. So what Louisville's success has been is pressing high, which opens up space. And the person who likes to run into space is Shawinga. How do you see this one playing out? And like, what's the balance of knowing who you are and managing the opponent?
I think you have to adapt in this one.
Yeah.
You can't. I'm not saying you can't high press Kansas City, because there are moments that you can high press them. But you have to make sure that when you go, the domino effect is in place, that everything behind you is prepped and ready. And maybe even that's like a call or a signal from a center back, an outside back, a central midfielder to say, like, this is our moment, go. But if Weber, who started up front, if she goes, like, you can't be disconnected. And so either she's going by herself and everybody else is staying and you respect the space in behind, or you all go and you commit to it, hoping to make a little bit of a mess of it. It'll be interesting because that side with Shawinga is, I think Ellie Jean has been really good on as a center back, coming in, stepping into this spot, really owning that right center back position. But we're going to see how good this Lauren Millay, Ellie Jean combination is, with Shawinga floating in that space, Bia dropping and pulling a center back into the midfield. I think Louisville is going to have to adapt slightly, but I think a lot of people have to adapt on when they play Kansas City, and that's one of the benefits of this team is I guess it's a benefit, but also one of the things that Vlatko said is every time we prep for a game and this is our game plan, and then we go into it and teams aren't playing the way that we thought they were going to play. And so, but it makes Kansas City better, right? Because they're constantly solving situations because they have to do that every game. What do you think? I just feel like Louisville can't high press.
I agree with you. And I think, and we talked about this a bit with Utah against Orlando, of like no adjustment. Banda is too good to not adjust to. One of the things I saw, and I saw it even in the Utah game, is like, to me, the big one is going to be the decisions of when to press on the build out. Counter pressing, I think a little bit less of like, okay, if you're playing on the front foot at times, you're already higher up the field. Can you counter press quickly? Yes. I think that initial press, I think it's less like, what are your triggers, and more like, we're going to make conscious decisions every 10 minutes that we're going to try it once. Mm-hmm. I think if you have a trigger that you're going on, whether it's when the ball gets into the right back because Shawinga's the opposite side of the field and quote unquote, maybe that makes it safer. Look at the goals she scored against Gotham. She will make the run across the field. I think that becomes too predictable. And Kansas City then very quickly can say, all right, if that's where it is, then we're going to go long immediately off that pass. And I don't know, like even against this Utah in this last game, I don't know that Louisville's good enough yet of funneling the ball exactly where they want it. And so I think my guess is you'll have Weber start deeper off and sort of try and take out Labonta or Hutton off the initial pass. And then you'll start to decide where you press, and maybe it's higher up the field. So your backline doesn't have to be stepped even higher than that, because I think you're right. Like if you go to Kansas City on
and
Saturday
Cooper's back
evening,
too. So it's like, it doesn't matter which side.
Yeah. And you're going to, if you try and press high off every goal kick and you get pulled into the attacking third sort of defensively, and your back line standing on the half field line, it's going to be really, really hard to play against this Kansas City team. But you said it, like, this is how we'll learn. This is where we're going to learn, okay, where can Louisville be? Even if they come out of this game in a 1-goal loss, but they played to their fundamentals and they were competitive, that's like a big eye-opening moment that has potential for this team. Houston playing against San Diego. I mentioned the reports are out. I think Cesar Hernandez out in San Diego reporting this, that Maria Sanchez is in talks to join Tigres, which of course Diana Ordonez recently left Houston to go join down in Liga MX Femenal. Maria Sanchez, one of the biggest acquisitions in league history to come to NWSL, and then one of the biggest trades inside of NWSL to come to San Diego. That was under a different president, a different GM, and a different head coach when San Diego made that move. I think from the outside, I actually think Sanchez has been good this year. I think they found the best she's played in San Diego.
Yeah.
If you can get any reasonable number and sort of get out of this where everyone's happy, I think it's probably best case scenario for all parties.
Yes, and Maria Sanchez, she has the best left foot in the game, but she doesn't give you, like, if you have a Kimi Ascanio and you're trying to get Kimi Ascanio on the field and
or
she
Mel
can
Barsanis.
play a Barsanis, the energy they bring in this system is just different than Sanchez's, and that is disappointing because I do think when you have a really good Maria Sanchez, she is a difference maker, and she has been a lot better this year. But just from what I've seen I've been on a lot of San Diego calls, it doesn't feel like she is exactly what Jonas wants in that spot.
The other big game to note for the weekend, or one of the other ones, is Angel City against North Carolina. I think this is a really fun style one. The results haven't been there for the two teams. You were on Angel City's game this weekend, first one under their new head coach. What do you make of sort of what he'll be for this club?
It's been interesting. I got to talk with Alex Straus before the game, and he's a very interesting personality. Like, he was funny, and even Emma Vignola said something about his personality. Like, I've never played for a coach like this, and he is very detail oriented. She said it's the hardest trainings that they've had since she's been there in this few days that leading up to their game. So he is going to be very demanding, but he also said, like, you can't build Rome in a day, right? You're not, and not like they have a long ways to go, but they still leaked 2 goals, right? It was still Angel City giving up goals, which is something. I mean, he was like, well, we'd like to give up less goals and score more goals. I was like, well, wouldn't everybody? You know, like but he wants to see little nuances of the game. And if you watch that first goal for Angel City, the way that they combine and build through the lines, and Dufa was like a little bit tucked in, playing as a playmaker centrally, which we haven't seen a lot from her. Are we going to see more from her now under his reigns? I didn't see a lot of different things, but that goal to me was like, all right, they are working on different distances between the players centrally as they build. And, I think that could be really exciting when you have a full healthy squad with Giselle Thompson back and not Miyabi there, who's been great, but it's just not Giselle Thompson.
One of the big debates that we have, I feel like, consistently when people come as players or coaches from outside of NWSL is like, is that team that they're working at of the quality of the teams they're going to? Is it higher? And I do think one of the mistakes in that is I actually think the opponent conversation is even bigger. And like, Bayern doesn't really go to the last place team in Germany, or have the last place team in Germany come to their building and be challenged even the way the Stars do. And like, Ali Schlegel scoring the best goal of the weekend, but like, that's NWSL. Very rarely is there like, oh, you're going to walk over an opponent. I think it was a pretty quick lesson of like, okay, so this is what we're doing now. Welcome. And let's move on from here. And I wouldn't blame, like, he's come in so late. I'm not blaming him in any way. I'm just saying this was a very NWSL moment. I think it's a way to be readjusted to things. One of the other big games to note for the weekend, I think Bay FC against Orlando is going to be really interesting. And we are going to get out of here. But 2 things to mention before we go. 1, congratulations to Canada. For the first time ever, they won a CONCACAF U20 championship. They obviously knocked out the U.S. and Mexico to get there. One of the stars of the team at Notre Dame. So expecting, hopefully, to see an NWSL. But this is a really good moment for Canada. I think the senior national team doing very well right now. And so to have it come through the youth ranks, congratulations to them. And the other, which Morgan Tenzer reminded me of in the chat, is congrats to the U.S. women's team that won the TST for the second straight year. Carly Lloyd lacing it up once again. I think Heather O'Reilly had the winning assist on the target score winner in the end, and just keeps rolling out $1 million.
Yeah, and Casey Lloyd, formerly Casey Noguera, my former teammate, just balling like that girl. This tournament was made for her. If we would have gotten Casey Lloyd in this tournament in her prime, like everybody would be talking about her. We're still talking about her now, but I just love. I went to the first rendition of TST and watched her and Nikki Phillips, two of my really good friends, play in that, and they're still playing. They're still winning $40,000 a year, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, not a bad way to spend 4 days or whatever it ends up being. Zach also runs a team.
Zach does, yes. Yeah. Her husband played for FC Dallas for a long time, and they have a soccer ministry called 1015, and they put a team in I think they lost in the quarters.
But they've gotten to the knockouts both years.
Yeah.
And she's technically the GM of that team. So on both sides, running on field and off field, putting together results. Shout out to Lori Lindsay, by the way, who's been here on this show a bunch.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to Casey White, who was one of the coaches
Angel
as well.
Angel
Lloyden, who I told this story on one of the MLS shows, but I came over to say hi as they were warming up for one of their group stage games. And Jill's talking to me, and they're like, Jill, you're up. And it's like a shooting drill, turns around, jumps in goal, makes 2 big saves, screams, and then turns around and comes back and like rejoins the conversation. And I was like, she is having so much fun.
Yeah.
No one loves goalkeeping more, but also loving the game. It was really, really fun.
Love that.
It's a fun event if you've never been.
Did you have a good time?
I did. I got rained on, and I got soaked through, but I had a good time. And I was glad to be there, glad to watch the games. Congratulations to U.S. Women and Bumpy Pitch, I believe, which were the 2 winners. Have a great weekend watching NWSL. We'll be back with you. I'll have the weekend recap on Monday, and then we'll have our show once again next week. So thank you to all of you for listening. We love you so much for being here, and we'll talk to you again very, very soon.